Al, we may have goofed about this a couple weeks ago, but now we can actually talk about the new Final Fantasy.
It's true. We have both completed the story now.
Even though the story's not complete.
Yeah, well,
Don't worry, in like 2029 we'll finish the story.
hey, maybe my student loans will be wiped by then.
Nah.
Damn it. I mean, that 2029 is my year. That's when it's scheduled.
Don't worry, they'll find some way to not do that.
Don't tell me that.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Season Anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Al and Lady
Hello.
This is episode 378, and we are discussing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth,
Rebirth.
the second game in the Final Fantasy VII Remake story.
Mm-hmm.
Coming hot off the heels of the 2020 release.
I mean, kind of cool off the heels, but it's been a hot second.
Hot off the heels. Yeah, this game came out on February the 29th of this year, so, a couple weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
And a big tentpole release for the year, of course. People do like that Final Fantasy. Especially the Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I hear that people are a big fan of the Final Fantasy VII.
Little known game, Final Fantasy VII.
I write for a website about Final Fantasy VIII being the best.
Yeah, what about Final Fantasy VII?
Maybe I should write an article for Final Fantasy VIII is the best about how I played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I still think Final Fantasy VIII is the best.
Ralph Buddy, me.
Ralph,
Anyways,
buddy, you.
let's talk about development of this year video game.
Okay.
During the promotion of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Square Enix confirmed that it would not cover the original's complete story, but would rather act as a standalone first game in a multi-part series, with each entry providing its own unique experience. Game director Tetsuya Nomura, you may have heard of him,
Heard of him once or twice.
cited a massive undertaking to reconstruct Final Fantasy VII from the ground up with the current technology as the reason why a remake was not possible for some time. He went on to elaborate that fully remaking its content in a single installment would necessitate cutting various elements to suit the target hardware and gameplay design, by which point a remake would be considered pointless. He additionally expressed a desire to expand upon the original game's depiction of Midgar for one game, wanting players to explore various areas that were previously inaccessible in the original, with heightened detail due to the increased power of newer generation hardware. While Nomura understood the nostalgia behind the original game story, he envisioned Remake as a reimagining that would get the fans of the original version excited. Producer Yoshinori Kitase likened the remake's multi-part structure to Final Fantasy XIII, being followed by Final Fantasy XIII-2 and Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII. He stated that remake structure would differ from that of 13's due to its nature as a remake of a pre-existing narrative centered on a central protagonist, Cloud, as opposed to the multiple perspectives
Cloud.
focused on across the 13 trilogy. He also anticipated each game in the remake series to be approximately as long as one of the Final Fantasy XIII games. Kitase would subsequently reveal that Final Fantasy VII Remake project to encompass a trilogy between Remake, its sequel, which is this, and a third and final entry. The development team had initially conceived of remaking it across 2 games rather than 3, citing the indecision on the direction as a primary reason for their lack of clarification on how many parts the remake would have. Kitase explained that this was due to the difficulties in determining development scheduling due to the lack of understanding regarding the project's overall scope. The follow-up to Remake had begun development in November 2019 prior to the game's initial release on the PlayStation 4. According to Nomura, the game was designed with newcomers in mind.
Whoa.
Nomura later stated in July of 2020 that the intent was to produce a higher quality game than its predecessor, while also ensuring it was released as quickly as possible. Well,
Mm.
in regards to the technical improvements made in Remake's enhanced 2021 point Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Nomura noted that while environmental effects such as fog were added to the port in order to further enhance the sense of realism and immersion in the world, he advised fans to wait for further entries that would take proper advantage of the PS5's hardware and features in both gameplay and graphics. Game director Naoki Hamaguchi separately expressed a desire to leverage the new gameplay and battle mechanics introduced in the downloadable content episode Intermission, such as team-up attacks performed by Yuffie and Sonon in the next game, as he felt they would made for a different feel in battle strategy. Rebirth was revealed alongside Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, a remaster of Crisis Core for modern platforms, which influenced quality of life improvements to gameplay and presentation to bring the game in line with Remake. This includes Remake's English voice cast, who replaces the original voice actors. Reunion was blah, 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 blah. This is just all about Reunion. The remaster was designed to familiarize players with the story of Zack ahead of his appearance in Rebirth, which he would take a more significant role. In April... Yeah, we'll get to that. In April 2023, lead battle programmer Satoru Koyama spoke on the potential of incorporating improved party AI in the battle system for Rebirth and sequel, remarking on its potential to multitask between physical attacks, techniques, and magical casting, while expressing a desire to surpass the Gambit system used for non-controlled party members in Final Fantasy XII. That was a whole lot not about this game.
Yeah. Rip.
Ripperoni. Did you know this game was one of the first major video game releases to release on a leap day?
You know, I didn't even think about that.
So there you go.
I wonder what games have been released on leap days.
That's a great question.
Or what big games.
Yeah. Let me see if this link says anything about that. Not really. So, anyways.
All right.
This game has a 93 out of 100, 93% on Metacritic and OpenCritic, respectively. And in Japan, it was the highest selling new release during its first week, selling over 260,000 units. And probably sold like a bajillion other units worldwide. I don't know. There's no number here, but probably a butt ton.
Mm-hmm.
I will go ahead and say that. Unconfirmed, but probably confirmed. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It is more Final Fantasy VII in the remake style, but this time, we'll talk about like some non-spoilery stuff first, and then we'll dive into the meat and potatoes of spoiler stuff, as we tend to do. But yeah, I think the big thing with this game is that it is more open world focused, kind of like there's just more big open areas. Which they decide, hey, y'all like them Ubisoft games? Y'all like climbing towers? I'm like, no, not really.
No, not really.
Well, too bad.
You get to climb lots of towers.
You get to climb a lot of towers. Yay.
Like, the first time, like, in the grasslands area, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then we got to June, and I was like, this is fine. And then we got to, like, Costa del Sol desert area. I was like, this is no longer fine.
Yeah.
This is no longer fine. And then by the time I got Going Gaga, I'm just like, no, this.
Yeah, I think that stuff kind of wears its welcome out, especially because, like, there's no variety in terms of, like, the activities you're doing between each area. It's just, like, you will go fight monsters, you'll go investigate the live stream, you'll go find information about the specific summon of that area. It's the same old stuff. You'll find proto relics, which is like its own built-in storyline stuff. But yeah, it's you do the same things each individual area, so there's no variety or anything. So it's just go around, do all the stuff again, go around, do all the stuff again. And it really feels like as well, like each area gets progressively more annoying to navigate through.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help in the slightest.
Oh my God. Like I said, by the time I got to Going Gaga, I was just like, what is happening? Like, what do you mean I have to figure out which specific mushroom I have to bounce off of to get to this damn thing? Are you kidding me? How can you take something as fun as the word Gungaga and make it awful? And yet they did it.
Me, Gungaga.
Gungaga. Like Cosmo Canyon, just like having to fly around and stuff. I'm like, how do I get to this dang tower? I have to find the very specific jumping off point for the chocobo to fly over there. I'm like, oh my God. Ugh.
Yeah, that I feel like it was a good idea at first, and then like it wasn't. By the time you're 60 to 70 hours in, you're just kind of like, I'm good on this.
Yep.
I think the battle mechanics are improved upon. Like I like all the team up stuff that you're able to pull off and all that sort of stuff. And just like combat feels a lot snappier and faster and all that sort of stuff. So, um, that all felt good and everything. I think the character writing is good for the most part. There's a lot of good character moments and interactions that you get that are real fun. Um, like I think they improve upon Yuffie's characterization from the original into this,
Oh yeah, 100%.
which is
Barrett like shines,
mm-hmm,
which heck yeah, Yuffie was really really good in
mm-hmm.
this.
Poor gal just kept getting vehicle sick.
Yeah, oh, she's struggling.
It's still saying they do not know how to pronounce Kaishi.
They do not have friends.
Kate Sith.
Kate Sith. I was like, oh, yikes. They made it very obvious who he is in this one.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you didn't know going into it, you know now. Um, Vincent was hilarious.
yeah. He's just he's something.
He's a little edgelord boy. It's like, had a real bad day. Huh, well, how about that? I have too. Buddy, what? Just brooding everywhere.
Sid is just very southern good old boy.
He's a good old boy.
This is pretty fun.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's just like, I don't know about all that weird stuff. I'm just gonna stay put where I am. Thanks. Anyway, thanks for flying the Bronco Airlines.
uh, um, I thought it was kind of weird because like in terms of story stuff, like this is very non-spoilery, but like
Hmm.
it doesn't really get. It's not really that weird for most of this game. It's just kind of like, hey, you remember the story of Final Fantasy VII? Well, here's the story of Final Fantasy VII of these specific sections.
Yeah, I mean it is pretty faithful to the original, like
Yeah.
which is not really what we were promised with remake.
Because especially coming off of remake, you would expect like it just go in like some completely bonkers direction, but like this is more remake than remake was.
Yeah, like this is nearly a one for one in certain spots, and you're like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And then like certain aspects that they brought up in remake, like whispers, it's like they forgot that they existed entirely until certain things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Um,
did y'all forget your plot devices?
there's a
What
whole
happened here?
there's a whole heck of a lot of mini games in this here video game.
Oh my God.
Maybe too many.
I know that like the original one had a lot of mini games. I understand that. This one had too many mini games. Like by the time we had to do that like robot fight one, I was just like, are you kidding me? You want me to do another thing? Come on.
Like obviously the gold saucer stuff is in here, and you get all those mini games, which like that's to be expected and everything. But like, there's so many
Yeah.
other mini games surrounding just other activities that you do.
You
There's
want to wrangle some Moogles?
Wrangle Moogles. There's the new card game Queen's Blood,
Mm-hmm.
which has its own weird storyline attached
It has
to
its
it.
own weird storyline, yeah.
Um, there's like little mini games attached to like the proto relics and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's the mini games for catching Chocobo.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Fort Condor,
Fort
which I guess
Condor.
which I guess is proto relic, but
But
still,
I mean that's also a returning mini game as well.
yeah,
There's the piano rhythm game.
right.
There's
Which
the
can be really
there's
obnoxious.
the rhythm game you can do for the parade segment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's a whole lot of stuff in this.
There's a whole lot.
They found ways to pad out that runtime as much as they could.
Yeah, they really
if
did.
you want to do everything
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Which I did most everything. I didn't do one side quest because I was like, this is stupid.
Mhm.
I'm not doing this. And I still had like 100-hour runtime.
Game long, which I mean they
Game long.
that was known going into this. Obviously, like it was like
Yeah, yeah.
this is
Two
like
discs.
30 to 40 hours if you just want to do the story, but if you want to do everything, you're looking at about like 100 hours ish.
There's no way anybody could have gotten through the story in 30 to 40 hours. I don't
I mean,
think.
if you're mainlining it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're shotgunning everything, maybe, but you literally have to do nothing extra.
Yeah, it is possible.
Hmm.
It does look very nice. It does, but also like there's parts of it where if you're playing it on like performance mode, it gets very blurry at times because like I don't know. I think there's a problem with it. Like they are eventually going to patch that. Because like something's funky with it, but for the most part, it's a very nice looking video game.
Yeah.
The soundtrack's good and all that stuff as well. Taking full advantage of the PlayStation 5 hardware.
Oh boy, I've seen some salty people that it didn't come out on PC.
Well, it's going to come out on PC afterwards. Like, that's how the first game was.
I know. I'm just saying I've seen a lot of salty people that
Well,
it didn't come out on PC.
they
It's like,
can
what did you expect?
they can just shut up.
Yeah.
Go back in time
Yeah,
and learn how this all went the last time.
as much as people like bust balls about like, well, maybe I should get a good PC or something. It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe you should get a console that runs everything, and there you go.
Let them know. Let them
Yeah.
know.
Like, wow, I can play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at launch, and like I don't have to worry about the specs because I just put the disc in, and it's like, wow, I play amazing.
Unless you're in Japan, then you have to put the opposite disc in.
Oh, right, that's true.
Because they mislabeled the discs.
They mislabeled the
Which is
discs.
pretty good.
That's so funny.
That's a good goof. Is there anything else we can talk about before we dive into some story stuff that you can think of off the top of your head? Y'all hear about Chadley and how everyone hates him?
Yeah, everybody hates Chadley. I mean, I wasn't that bothered by him. Although, like, the entire Grasslands, he didn't have any volume because I had accidentally piped him to my controller and not my speakers and had my controller muted. So I was like, why does he talk? All right, whatever.
Listen, here's the real take. The girl character they made is worse than Chadley.
Yeah, what, Mai? Is that her name? Yeah, she's pretty terrible. I mean, the whole thing with Mai is that, like, I'm trying to fight these dang things. I'm trying to do these tasks you've set out for me. Can you just shut up for 10 seconds
She's
about
having
like
a whole conversation. I'm like, I'm not even listening to you because I'm trying
I'm
to
not
fight
even
this
listening
stuff.
to you. Right, like I'm trying to focus on like how do I pressure this guy because you've told me to pressure and stagger and all this stuff. It's like just shut up. And I love that Chadley's like, I regret making her. This is the worst.
Bruh.
Something that's non-spoilery-ish because it was in a trailer is that this is definitely the year of the RPG and the Segway.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get to use the Segway as much in this game compared to like
Yeah,
Infinite Wealth, which is disappointing. But yes, you do.
disappointing.
You do get to run around on the Segway, which is very fun.
I ran into so many planters.
You can just knock planters all around. It's very fun.
Just like vroom. Yeah, the whole like custody of soul section. I was like, oh, this is just infinite wealth. How about that?
How about that?
How about that? Anyway, that's the last thing I could come up with. It is not spoilery.
All right. Well,
Get out of here if you don't want spoilers.
yeah, get out of here if you don't want spoilers because we're going to talk about some spoilers and some very spoilery stuff right off the rip. So, so yeah.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Come back. Come back
Farewell.
eventually.
All right, let's talk about some spoilers here
Spoilers.
of this here video game. I would say I liked 80% of this video game, and then the last 20% were very not good.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Temple of the Ancients is terrible.
Terrible.
I don't understand why they thought making a 3-hour long dungeon where you got to do a bunch of bullshit in it was a good idea.
I mean, it just grinds everything to a
It
halt.
does, like, because like that game, I feel like, we mentioned like it's kind of just like it's just Final Fantasy VII at that point.
Yeah.
And you're just going through it, and you're just having a good old time and everything, and you're just like da 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 da, and then just once you get to that area, just the momentum just is halted as quickly as possible, and you're just like, this is
Yeah.
taking forever.
I mean, the only like remotely interesting thing about that was like the challenges that they made everybody go through. Um, but I mean, getting through that dungeon was legit painful. And by the time I got there, it was just like that sucked. And I like even the positive stuff that I had about that was just like, I don't care. I hated that.
It's
I hated
just,
everything about it.
it's especially weird because like most of the set piece like dungeon areas, quote unquote, that you'd seen in the game weren't even remotely that long. Maybe like an hour, hour and a half tops, and like
Right.
they never felt like they overstayed their welcome or anything like that. Whereas this was just like they doubled down on the length and everything, and just like making you do weird things, splitting up your party here and there. Just like they wanted you to go through the ringer, and just it didn't feel like it worked.
No, it was painful and not fun and just honestly
hmm
frustrating. Um, I don't know what the thought process on that was. And I know that like I've seen people be like, "Oh, well, we got more interest like information on the Cetra and all that." And like, did we actually? Because like I know we had all the little hologram going on, but like I don't feel like I actually learned anything new about the Cetra.
Also, you could still do that and make the dungeon way shorter.
Yeah, like Temple of the Ancients in the original, it was like confusing in the way it was set up, but like it was relatively short.
Yeah.
It was a setup for the final part of the game. Which I mentioned to you that like chapter 14, I was so because we didn't get to explore Forgotten City at all.
hmm
I would have loved if they had cut Temple of Ancients in half or like a third or whatever and given us some playtime in Forgotten City. Like, why?
It felt like they kind of just like they thought they needed like some big bombastic dungeon to end the game with, and it's like this ain't it.
This ain't it.
This ain't it.
Um, Also, weird side note, but we sail north to go to Temple of the Ancients, and Temple of the Ancients in the original is in the south. So I was like, huh?
Well,
Like,
this is a different universe, so that's why.
well, maybe. I mean, like, north is where Forgotten City is, so like that part makes sense. But it made Cloud being like, well, we gotta go north now. I was like, you're in the north,
We gotta go norther.
norther, more north. So that was a weird switch when like everything else is kind of in the same position. It's like why would you switch where Temple of the Ancients is?
Maybe they didn't want you like going to the south and then going all the way back up north to do the other stuff.
Maybe.
Like they just cut out like a big thing of sailing at that point, which I sure whatever.
Sure.
But
I mean, you could have done like an Indiana Jones type situation of like you're in the south, you're at Temple of the Ancients, and you just see like a ding on the map, then you're there. Or like one of the automated, like, hey, we're going this direction and we're chatting about what we're gonna do type situation. I don't know. Either way, it was weird that they switched where it is, but the only thing that really makes sense is multiverse
which
shenanigans.
is what we're getting here.
Yay!
Yeah, it definitely feels like they were like, because like the whole thing of remake was like, oh yeah, we broke free of fate and everything, and then just this game is just like, all right, you want to play through Final Fantasy VII, where
It was
nothing's really
weird.
changed, and then it's just the game, and then the last two chapters, we didn't get weird with this game because like I thought with how they were kind of doing this is being like, well, they can't get real weird with it because like these parts of Final Fantasy VII are kind of weird to begin with, so you can't just
Right,
make it even more weird on top of the weird. So I thought that's kind of
right.
why they were holding back. But really, it just felt like by the end of it, they just like, we gotta get metatextual real quick. Multiverses. Do you want to bundle the ending of the game? Sephiroth knows everything. He's gonna get real philosophical at this point. Cloud sees ghosts.
Remember the whispers?
Whispers, they're back, but there's more of them, and they're different colors now.
Whoa!
It's just panic all around.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I guess some of that started in Going Gaga with like Tifa being thrown in the live stream.
Which doesn't matter at all.
Doesn't matter at all. Like nothing comes of that. And like, why did we do that if we're not even gonna like deal with it? Like literally the only thing we get from that is Tifa going to like what, Bugenhagen, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
And being like, hey, I fell in the live stream. He's like, ha, you're a dumbass. Like, I'm not listening to you. And then she goes to a therapy session and is like, hey, I fell in the live stream. And they're like, oh, beautiful, beautiful, good job. And then nothing.
And then also like the whole thing of like Cloud attacking her is like, well, that was weird. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, like, oh, wow, I almost killed Tifa. Oh, well.
Anyways.
Who cares? Doody doody doo. It's like, we're just not gonna just okay. Okay. Sure. Why not?
Why not?
So yeah, some of that I was just like, y'all don't know what you're doing right now with this story, do you?
No. I
Which
mean,
like look at Zach.
yeah, speaking of that, I was gonna say, let's segue into talking about Zach Fair and his involvement in this video game.
You mean he doesn't have any involvement in this video game?
It's just like, all right, well, we put Zach in a different multiverse where he's
Mhm.
alive, Cloud's messed up, Aerith is comatose, everyone else is dead, apparently.
Yeah, everybody else died.
Biggs is alive, though. And he's like,
Yeah.
him and Zach are like, there's some weird timeline shenanigans happening here with what we know and everything. That's weird.
Yeah, like
Marlene knows the events of Final Fantasy VII somehow.
that was so funny. She's like, yeah, you know, if Aerith wakes up, this guy with like silver hair is gonna stab her and she's gonna die. Also, she's in love with Cloud.
And Zach's just like, oh, that sucks. Anyways.
Well, okay then. That's a lot of information this 4-year-old just gave me.
Like it definitely, like, they obviously remade Crisis Core so you could get the Zack stuff, and because at the end
Yeah.
of remake they bring him back and do all that stuff.
Mhm.
And then in this game they just like didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, they had no idea what to do with him, and it was really disappointing actually, because it was like, oh, another Zack chapter. We're gonna do something? Oh, no, oh, okay, no, all right.
Like I thought there was interesting things there at first, where like, him and Biggs are palling around being sad boys. They're in this weird
Yeah.
version of the world where it's like it's about to end and everyone's just like despondent about that and like, oh, sucks to suck anyways. And like I thought this was going to end up being like, well, if they kill Aerith off, she'll end up in this version of the world, and like her and Zack or something will like work together to figure out a way to save the other world somehow. But then they just don't do that. They just like,
Yeah.
they're like multiverse shenanigans.
I thought maybe Zack was gonna figure out a way to like help Cloud save her.
Right.
Especially like at the end where he's like, what do I do? Do I pick to help Biggs? Do I go this direction to help Cloud? Oh, we're gonna do this. And then they didn't do anything with that. It's like, huh? What do you mean you're just not gonna do anything with that? I feel like they just like squandered the fact that Zack is alive in some universe to do nothing with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that he could like pop into a fight and be like, hey buddy, what's up? Whoa, and then just disappear again. Like, huh?
Yeah, it's very strange.
And it somehow like didn't mess with Cloud's brain for Zack to like show up and help him fight
He's just like,
when
Zack? Oh, anyways, let's
oh,
fight.
because like he's come to the conclusion like, oh, I saw Zack die. Zack died. He was the one that got swept away by the river. I'm gonna be like a the Aerith and be like, oh yeah, that guy's dead.
That guy sucks.
He sucks. But then he just shows up and it's like nothing, no big deal. Like, huh? Huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. And then Biggs dies anyway.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. That whole stuff was just very weirdly implemented.
I mean, like I said to you when we were talking about this a little bit afterwards, is that like I thought where they were gonna go with it is that like, even though we have taken out the whispers and everything, like fate is gonna make it like make things go down the way they're supposed to anyway, because like we see Wedge like fall from a great height and die. Um, Biggs gets shot. Um, there was an implication at one point that Jesse had been alive in the previous game, but then they're just like, no, just dead.
Psych.
Um, so I was like, oh, maybe that's the point that they're getting to is that like even though we think we can change things, we can't actually change anything. Like it's still gonna happen anyway.
Well, too bad. It's just Sephiroth controlling all this.
Yeah, it's like what? What? What's the point of killing Wedge again? Other than to bring up, hey, Matt and Lucia were here.
Matt and Lucia are like big members of Avalanche, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. Which,
Which
like,
is just a
man,
throwaway line in a piece of side content that you may or may not see.
right, right.
That just really feels like they're like, oh yeah, we made Ever Crisis. Let's just tie them into this somehow. Which is how
Hey,
Glenn is essentially in this game.
I was say, talk about squandered opportunity with Glenn. Oh my God.
That whole thing with the Glenn stuff was very weird because like he shows up and it's just like
Very weird.
weird, grimy dude when like that his whole characterization in Ever Crisis so far has just been like happy go lucky goofball, and in this he's like,
Yeah.
look at my
Yeah,
goatee, I hate Rufus.
he has none of the personality that he had in Ever Crisis.
And then it's just like, oh, by the way, it's just Sephiroth distracting Rufus from Sephiroth.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is like, what?
It's just Genova Sephiroth being like, whoa, what's happening here? And then, Rufus is like, I'm gonna fund this fight between Shinra and Wutai, but I'm gonna use a fake name. And I was telling you in Japanese, it's literally just his name backwards.
Got him.
Got him.
They'll never know it's me.
But also, like, bro, what do you mean you're funding a war between your company and another country, but you're funding that other country? Like, what are you doing?
I mean, I guess to be fair, Rufus is not having the greatest time because he's imagining Glenn the whole time, and just like he's having the weird staticky stuff that Cloud has apparently as well. So
yeah, that's
not having a good time.
He's not having a good time. He apparently killed Glenn.
Spoilers.
We're in spoiler territory.
Spoilers for Ever Crisis.
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't know that he killed Glenn until I saw
No, I didn't either. And then they're also just like, oh, by the way, here's what happens at the end of it. This is what the Ever Crisis story is going to end up being.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
Like, oh, cool, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that whole thing feels like, oh, hey, do you want to play? You should play that mobile game.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Ever Crisis? You should play that.
It was really tacked on.
Yeah.
And I think there are better ways to like have Rufus think about his position and what he's doing than that.
Yeah. I will say I think the one good thing they did was bring Cisne back, which was something we talked about in Crisis Core. We talked about Crisis Core that hey, they should bring her back for this series they're doing, and they do that with her ending up in Gongaga and like leading the Gongaga folks and everything, like protecting them from Shinra and all that, because she's like, this is Zack's hometown, and maybe he'll come back one day, maybe.
Well, and didn't he ask her like, "Hey, can you watch over my parents for me?"
You would know more than me.
I'm pretty sure he asked her at that point, like when he knew what was gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, there's no way I can win this fight, but I'm gonna try and run away anyway. It's fine. Like this is obviously before like the final showdown type situation,
right.
But like when he was trying to get away with Cloud, I'm pretty sure he said something about that. But I mean, she says in one of the side quests, if you pick the like correct option, she's like, yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to come back,
mm-hmm.
and I don't think he will, but I want to be here in case he does.
Yeah.
I was like, it's his name. Yes.
So that was a really fun surprise because I was like, I heard her voice and I was like, is
Is that
that?
her?
I had to like wait until like the game confirmed it. And I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yay! And then you texted me and you're just like, oh my God, you're gonna lose your mind.
And then you got there and you're like, whoa. So that part was
I
good.
was so surprised she's alive.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, this was in the good parts of this game, so
No, you're right, you're right. And during the whole like proto relic thing, like she gets scanned and she's like, no, 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 stop talking, stop telling them a Turk. Oh my God. And like somehow none of them pick up like, oh hey, yeah, she's a Turk.
but also not a Turk right now.
Yeah, she's no longer a Turk. She's a former Turk. But she has the badge that she gets scanned in, and
Yeah,
they're saying she's a Turk. Did we have Kaishi at that point?
yeah, because he's the one like leading you around the Shinra places.
Right, right. Um, so like he should have known,
Or
but
maybe it was him, or maybe it was Chad. I think Chadley's the one who's like, who like reads her log and is like, blah 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 blah. What that would mean? And she's like, ugh!
no,
No 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 no.
no, 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 talkie. Stop talking. Um, which I guess that's something else I can bring up on the bad column is like that Kaishi section with throwing the boxes was a nightmare.
Oh yeah yeah yeah, that was not great.
Ugh, I hated that section. What do you mean I have to throw all these boxes? This terrible system of throwing boxes. What do you mean you want to make me hate this giant Moogle that I'm riding on? I want to love him. But he can't aim for
He's doing his best.
Is he?
I mean, clearly.
That part sucked.
Yeah. Not good.
No, no. But Cisne was good.
I feel like, well, there's one thing we got to talk about, and that is the elephant in the room.
Did Aerith die?
Why is Dio so hairy? No.
I mean, why is he? Yuffie had an awakening. I don't know if you saw that, but Yuffie's like peeking through the fingers, like, oh my God. But yeah, he is hairy and he is beefy and he is in his undie pants.
He is a very 80s pro wrestler look. It was very funny. But yes,
It's very funny.
the big question, obviously, going into this game was, what do they do with Aerith?
Yeah.
You know, they've set off with remake of like, hey, we can do weird things with this game. We can change things if we want. Do they? And this is what we talked about at the end when we played through. Is like, what do they do? Do they keep her alive this time? Change things that way, or do they stick with the script and give her the old stabby stabby, poke poke? And
Poke, poke.
so obviously that would have been the big question going into even just like this project in general, but especially for this game where that's going to be the climax of the video game.
Like they told us, like pre-launch, like, hey, you know, this is going to end in the Forgotten City, and everybody knows what that means.
Right. So you have all this time to determine, hey, what do we do with this? And the answer they came up with was shrug shoulders.
Yep, basically.
I am just baffled and perplexed by the way they completely f***ed up the ending of this and f***ed up one of maybe the most
Like iconic video game
scenes
scenes
in
of all
video game
time.
history. Yeah. Like, how
Yeah.
do you do that?
Like, I understand that they had put themselves in a bad situation of like, you can't really please anybody because you upset people if you let her live, you upset people if you kill her again.
But this way you just upset everyone.
Everybody,
Like, you can't be
you gotta
ambiguous
come down
with
on a
this.
decision. And they were very ambiguous with this.
Like, this is the one thing you don't be ambiguous with.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, not only did they like mess up one of the most iconic scenes in video game history, but like they took out entirely the emotional punch of it.
Yeah.
Because not only did you not really see what happened, not really have an explanation, but then you have like a long ass boss afterwards, like one of the most ridiculously long bosses of the
And you're
game.
the whole time you're just like
You don't get a bear.
the whole time like when that scene's playing out,
Yeah.
you're just confused. You're just like, it's what we blocked
What?
it, but then she's got stabbed, and then she's bleeding, but then she's not bleeding, but then she's bleeding
And
again,
then
and then she's not
then she
bleeding,
wakes up.
and then she's fine, but then she's not fine, and you're just like, what the is happening?
And like there's no burial scene, so like they're obviously trying to keep it ambiguous what happened. But like those are two of the most emotional moments of Final Fantasy VII, and like some of the most memorable moments of Final Fantasy VII, where like the actual scene where she dies, and then that burial scene. And they're like, just both of it. Yeah, who cares? Whatever. You want to fight a final boss version of Sephiroth? You want a confusing scene with Zack?
You want a lot of confusing scenes with Zack?
Yeah. That'll make everybody happy. Hey.
Like I think you could have done some of like the ending stuff where like it really touches upon Cloud's like mental instability, where he's like seeing Aerith and all this sort of stuff, and he's the only one who can, and like he's not really grieving because he's just like, oh, Aerith's fine, whatever. And do all that stuff if you had been more concrete with what you wanted to do with the death scene.
Right.
But here it's just like none of that stuff, like you said, like none of the emotional parts of it hits. None of the stuff afterwards really hits in the same way, because you're just like, well, what really happened here? And it's not like it's a question of like, oh, what really happened? Because like you're interested in seeing where it goes. You're more just like, why didn't you just like actually give us a thing one way or the other? Like, this is the one thing you do commit on. You don't go ambiguous in this.
No, you don't. And yet here we are.
It's definitely been interesting seeing people play this game and then come out of it being like, the were they thinking? What the happened here?
It was a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big time mistake. I don't know what they were thinking with this, but I mean, like one of the most memorable things for me when I was playing Final Fantasy VII is like she gets killed. We have Cloud like mourning openly over her, saying like she was like his text box appears over Sephiroth's and is basically like, stop monologuing, like I'm sad. And then like we get that cool fight scene with Genova with like Aerith's theme over it. And then you get the burial and all. And like even I asked you the same question because I honest to God don't know. But they did the white materia switch and they showed it like bouncing off into the water, but like in original 7, they make it very clear like there's a green glow to it that like she was able to like get holy summoned. But I didn't see that in this one. So I was like, did she even actually succeed at getting holy trigger? Or did she just potentially, maybe, I don't know, die for nothing?
Well, don't worry. Multiverse Aerith is going to figure this out.
I saw people on Twitter talking about like, well, if you count, there are like 5 different versions of Stamp the Dog, and that's how you know which universe you're in. I was like, I shouldn't have to pay attention to the dog to know which universe I'm in. Also, why are there 5 different universes right now? What do you mean there's 5? What's happening in all these 5?
Sephiroth's monologuing.
I mean, basically, yeah. Like a little drama queen taking a page out of Genesis book.
I will say, playing Crisis Core definitely ruined Sephiroth for me, because I'm like, man, normal guy Sephiroth, real cool. That guy is great. Villain Sephiroth, terrible.
He sucks. Like nothing
villain.
interesting about him.
So boring.
It's so frustrating. It's like, oh my God, my dude. They also like made it very, very obvious. Like I was talking about how obvious it is that Reeve is Kaishi. But like they made it very obvious in this, like, hey, Cloud was the grunt the whole time. Like I don't know. They make some things very clear, and then they make things like the ending very unclear. And it's like, oh, why are those the choices you made? Why?
I do not envied the task of having to come up with a
Oh
decision
no,
on the Aerith
no,
death
I don't
scene
either.
in the slightest. But I think the choice they made was obviously the worst one you could possibly
So
make.
here's the thing that I'm thinking. Like, I'm very much in the camp of like, I want Aerith to live. I think that would have been really cool. That being said, I would have rather them like explicitly 100% killed her than do what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Because now it's like this weird limbo ambiguousness, and I'm like, okay, like I would have accepted if you had just made the decision to stick to the original instead of like saving her like you were implying was going to happen in remake, but instead you just did nothing. So, like,
Well, don't worry. Multiverse Aerith's going to be around in the next game, and she'll just pop up or with Cloud at some points and be like, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" And Cloud's going to be like, "Oh, look at me. I'm very normal. Hey, oh no, I'm in a wheelchair now and I'm falling."
whoa. Um, and the whole like sky shatter thing where at the end he's like, yeah, don't look up. It's like, okay, well,
Everyone's just like, "The f you talking
bro,
about,
you
dude?"
good? Wh
Bro is not good.
which I was seeing a thing that like they had changed Aerith's like final line in remake recently.
Yeah, right before Rebirth came
Yeah,
out.
and essentially what people are saying is like they changed that to imply that she's been seeing the sky shattering the whole time. And I'm like,
It's a weird thing to do right before the next game
yep.
comes out. Be like, "Oh, let's change this line real
Yeah, it's
quick."
like, okay. Okay, sure. Why not? Why not? It's so weird. Like it was really disappointing. And I'm just real mad that they did nothing with Zach. Like,
Yeah.
why have him live if you're going to do nothing with him?
This game just feels like a very like obviously it's a middle chapter, so it's going to be weird
Yeah,
regardless. But it feels weird and also in the fact of like I don't know if you really please people who want that one-to-one remake of Final Fantasy VII like you mostly kind of get
yeah,
here, but then the end happens and you're not going to please those
right,
people. And then you're also not going to please the people who want the weird wackiness or just like the metatextual stuff of
right.
remake because a lot of that's not here until the very end, and even then it's
It's not done
still
well.
not great. So it's like who
Who is this
really
for?
is well, I mean, like, not really who's this for, but like who really benefits from this
Yeah.
game?
I mean, if people were to go back and listen to our episode about remake, like one of the things that made us actually give a about playing any games after that is that they were just doing wild stuff and like making it clear that they were trying to go a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they're like, what if we just don't do that? And then like we get to the end and then we scramble and try to make something happen, but then it still fails.
We scramble and we just trip all over
Yeah, it's like, oh
ourselves.
God, hmm.
It's like a Looney Tunes
It
bit.
really is. Or like, I don't know, somebody's playing Mario Kart and they just keep hitting banana pills repeatedly.
They just keep green shelling
You know what? I was about
themselves.
to say like it's Mario Kart, but it's the blue shell only mode. Like that's the ending of this game.
You're in first place and you throw the blue shell and you're like, oh
Wait,
wait,
no,
oh wait, no.
no, that's gonna hit me. Like that's what this is. That's what that feels like. Like
Mm-hmm.
you had every chance to do something cool with this game, and you did the exact opposite of doing something cool with this game by ending it the way you did.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's disappointing. Like I said, I liked 80% of this game. I thought like there was a lot of good things that were
Mhm.
happening. Like I thought the character writing was real fun. Like the evolution of the characters from the first game to this game and everything was good. The locations were fun for the most part, except for like the open world
Mhm.
stuff and all that stuff. But like the more kind of like contained city areas
They were
were fun
fun.
and interesting. The combat was good. It looked really nice. And then you just get to chapters 13 and 14, and the game just falls off a
Yeah,
cliff.
yeah, it really did. One thing that I did want to mention that I thought was a really good idea that worked super, super well, was the voice change with Red 13.
Yeah.
I loved that because we didn't get as like because it was text boxes, we didn't really get that with original. And like there had been hints that that was going to happen throughout. Like there was one part where Cloud's like, "Why is there a dude in Aerith's room? And who is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
voice?" And he's like, I'm gonna go check it out." And then he comes out and he's like, brooding, blah blah
Hey,
blah.
how's it going?
And then like there's another point where Aerith is like taking a shower and you hear like the voice and you're like, "Huh, interesting." But then like he gets super excited to see his friends and Barrett's like, "Yo, what the hell?
Who's this?
What are you talking about?" Almost gets hit with a fire tail. He's like, "Ah, it's so good." I'm also very glad that they at least committed to Bugenhagen having the orb that he floats on.
Yes.
I was worried they were gonna undo that somehow.
That would have been very disappointing if that was not in here.
Very disappointing, but I'm glad that it was. Um, but yeah, some of the character writing was really, really good. I know that a lot of people were bummed out about how the whole dying situation went down. That he didn't kill himself this time. Which I mean, he kind of did, like a suicide by.
Sounds like they were mad because he was dying.
Ah! Um, he kind of did a suicide by cop situation there.
um. Also weird that like none of the Dirge of Cerberus stuff from Intermission was at all in here.
Zero. Like you had a flash of it in the Yuffie section.
But outside of that, like
Nothing.
nothing,
Nothing.
which is very strange.
And they just cut Rocket Town entirely. So that sucked. I was sad about that. I assume we'll get it in the next game, but who can say?
Shrug shoulders.
Man. I don't know, man. Like I was excited to play this one because I liked Remake and I liked what was it, the Yuffie DLC Integrate. I don't remember what it was called. Um, but like it's kind of a wet fart going into the third one.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about that.
I don't either. I don't either.
Um, Also just as a side note, because it's been one of the most frustrating things that's happened in the past few weeks, is that it has definitely reignited all of the horrible people who do the shipping wars. And I am so tired of seeing it. I'm
I can't
so
believe people
tired of
are
seeing it.
going to war over who should you date, Barrett or Red 13.
I mean,
Sound off down below.
uh, it's like, y'all,
Sorry, I mean it's either Barrett, Red 13, or you go on a date with the boys,
the boys,
which is what I think it's like
Kaishi,
Taichi,
Vincent,
Sid,
and
and
Sid.
Vincent.
Yeah,
Which is very funny.
that's really funny. Like, I need to see that one at some point. Um,
Hey guys, you want to go on the Ferris wheel?
let's do it. I want to go on the Ferris wheel with
what
Sid.
a group.
Um, that's like one of my least favorite aspects of like the Final Fantasy VII fandom is like that toxic shipping nonsense. It's gross. And like it has really been flamed by this game and it is infuriating. Um, it's like people don't realize, hey, literally all the dating stuff is optional. Like you make that choice because that's how it was in the original game. Nobody is canon. It doesn't matter. Doesn't
I'm
matter.
canon.
You are canon. You're great. Cloud should date you. Wait, no, actually, I wouldn't wish that on you because he's kind of up. You deserve better.
Just a little bit.
You deserve better. Honestly, everybody deserves better. Tifa lies, but Tifa also doesn't want to get stabbed again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just none of this is necessary.
All right, let me leave you with one final question here.
Is it the Final Fantasy question?
No.
Okay.
If you could take one location from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth
Hmm.
and put it into Power Wash Simulator, what is it?
Oh my God, that's the greatest question. Hmm. Hmm.
What place do you want filthy?
It would be pretty funny to have a filthy gold saucer.
But the gold saucer is very big.
It is very big. What, where would I, where would I want that is not huge?
Okay, here's my suggestion.
Okay.
Johnny's Hotel.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, it even makes sense because he would need a power wash. That is disgusting.
It's true.
Johnny's Hotel would be so fun. Get on a power wash, people.
That'd be pretty good.
Oh, that'd be fun. I like your suggestion and I'm gonna steal it.
But yeah. It's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I was thinking this whole time like, oh, they're gonna call the next one Reunion with how much they're saying Reunion, right? And then I was like, oh right, they called that Crisis Core remake Reunion.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, they kind of shot the shot there and messed up.
Oops, bagoops.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a video game.
Yep.
Da 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 da.
Yay.
That's gonna wrap it up for us this week.
Hmm.
So if you'd like more from us, head on over to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sac.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. You can follow us on Blue Sky, seasonalanimecheckup.com. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, A Critical Analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, Hot Tubs, and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza. Get access to unedited versions of the podcast early, monthly, exclusive Patreon podcast, and a whole wealth of bonus content as well.
Hmm.
Next week.
Next week.
It's the final episode of March. So
Is
you
it
know
March
what that
Madness time?
means. It's March Madness time.
Oh,
It's time to fill out your brackets.
yay!
Get ready for that.
Yay!
So look forward to that.